You check your account balance, do the math, and realize that if you lost your job tomorrow, you have maybe 2 months, maybe 3 if you cut everything to the bone. And there's no one else's paycheck coming in. No partner's income to carry the bills while you figure it out. No safety net beneath the safety net. Just you. That feeling isn't just stress. It's a very specific kind of exposure that most financial advice was never actually designed for. Here's what nobody tells you. The 3 to 6 month emergency fund rule was not built for single-income households. It was built around the assumption that most households have some recovery capacity underneath. A partner's income, family support, something to absorb the shock while you rebuild. For a single-income earner, there is no underneath. You're not building a financial cushion. You're building the entire floor. And that changes the math completely. It changes the psychology of building it, and it changes what happens when you don't have enough. Let's be honest about what the single-income situation actually is. You're carrying 100% of the household income, with 100% of the household expenses, and 0% margin for error if that income disappears. When a dual-income household loses one income, their monthly income drops by maybe 40 or 50%. They tighten, they adapt, they have time. When a single-income earner loses their job, the household income doesn't drop by half. It drops to 0. On the same first of the month that your rent or mortgage is still due. That's not a similar situation with a slight disadvantage. That's a structurally different risk profile. And treating it like a minor variation of the standard advice is one of the most expensive financial mistakes a single-income person can make. Now, here's the thing most people don't think about. The job search itself costs money. Not just the obvious stuff like groceries and rent while you're not working. The real cost is what urgency does to your decision-making. When you have 2 months of savings and no income, you do not have the luxury of waiting for the right offer. You take what comes. You skip the negotiation because you need a yes faster than you need a better number. You accept a role that's slightly wrong because something is better than nothing when your account is running low. And that decision, the one made from desperation, not choice, can set your income trajectory back by years. You lock in a lower salary. You take a title that's hard to move up from. You accept a company culture that burns you out inside 18 months. And then you're back in the same position, running on empty, forced to make another rushed decision. The emergency fund isn't just money, it's time. And time is the difference between taking the right job and taking the first one that says yes. Here's where people get stuck, and this one is real because I've seen it come up over and over. When you're the only income, every extra dollar you put into savings feels like a dollar you're removing from your present life. Especially if your income isn't large to begin with. You're already stretched. The idea of building 9 or 12 months of expenses feels so far away that it stops feeling like a real goal and starts feeling like something other people do. People with more. People with easier situations. So you save a little, feel okay about it, and you stop there. But that partial fund, the 2 or 3 months that most people have, isn't really protecting you. It's giving you the feeling of protection without the actual coverage. And that gap between how safe you think you are and how safe you actually are is exactly where financial crises live. And there's another layer under this that's worth naming. When you're a single income earner, the psychological weight of being the only safety net is real. There's a kind of chronic background tension that most financial conversations don't acknowledge. The awareness that there's no fallback. That every financial decision carries more consequence than it would for someone with a partner or a family support structure. That tension doesn't go away just because you know it's there. But it does become more manageable when you understand why the standard advice falls short for your specific situation and what you actually need instead. So let's talk about the real number, not 3 to 6 months. For a single-income household with no secondary safety net, the minimum realistic target is 9 months. 12 is better. Not because you'll necessarily need all of it, but because the fund needs to be large enough to cover not just the gap between jobs, but the time it takes to find the right job, and the time it takes for a new paycheck to actually stabilize your finances. Most people don't realize that even after you land a new role, there's often a 2 to 4 week gap before your first paycheck. There are startup costs. Sometimes a non-compete clause slows down your search. 12 months isn't pessimism, it's precision. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds impossible. If I could save 12 months of expenses, I wouldn't be watching this video. And I want to be real with you about that. If you're starting from close to zero, 12 months is not a realistic near-term goal. And chasing it as if it is, making yourself feel like a failure every month you don't hit some massive number, is one of the fastest ways to give up entirely. So let's be practical about this. The first target isn't 12 months, it's 1. 1 month of expenses, fully liquid, not invested, not mixed in with your checking account where it quietly disappears. 1 month is the threshold that separates, "I have a little breathing room," from, "A flat tire breaks my budget." Once you have 1, you build to 3. 3 months is the point where a job loss stops being an immediate emergency and becomes a serious problem you have time to think about. 3 to 6 months starts to give you the psychological buffer, where you can make decent decisions under pressure instead of panicked ones. 6 to 12 is where real negotiating power lives. You're not building it all at once. You're building the next layer. Here's the part of the conventional advice that genuinely frustrates me, because I think it does real damage. A lot of personal finance content treats the emergency fund as the boring preliminary before the exciting stuff: investing, building wealth, financial freedom. Get your funds sorted, then move on to the real work. But for a single income earner, the emergency fund is not the boring preliminary. It is the foundation that makes everything else possible. Without it, your investments are vulnerable. A job loss forces you to liquidate at exactly the wrong moment. Without it, the first real financial shock doesn't set you back. It sets you back to zero. With it, you have the one thing that transforms your financial life from reactive to proactive: the ability to make decisions from a position of stability instead of a position of desperation. That's not a small thing. That's everything. And there's one more shift in thinking that I want to leave you with, because I think it changes the way you feel about building this. Stop thinking of your emergency fund as money you're setting aside for a worst-case scenario. Start thinking of it as the infrastructure that gives you the freedom to make your best financial decisions, the confidence to hold out for the right job, the ability to negotiate instead of capitulate, the option to leave a situation that isn't working for you without catastrophic consequences. The emergency fund, at full strength, isn't just protecting against disaster. It's quietly running in the background, making you better at everything else. For single income earners specifically, that freedom is not a luxury. It's the price of entry for financial stability. Because you don't have a backup. You are the backup. And you deserve infrastructure that actually reflects that. If this hits something real for you, if you've been sitting with a number in your account that doesn't feel like enough, but you weren't sure how to think about it, drop it in the comments. How many months do you currently have? Where are you trying to get to? Not to compare, not to judge, just to put it into words, because sometimes saying the real number out loud is the first step to actually building toward it.